Hi there, welcome to Nonsense Whisky. My name's VinPF, and today we're going to be heading over to a brand new country so I can scratch off some stuff off this, and we're going to be hitting Australia, specifically the STARWARD distillery. And I've got two drams here to share with you today. But before that, I just want to share with you two whisky channels from Australia I think you should check out. They're both kind of new at it, and they're putting stuff out kind of fairly regularly. And that's JDC Drinks Whisky, and that he's in Brisbane I think, and there's Andrew at PrestigeLiquidsWW, and I think he might even be in Melbourne, but I might be wrong on that. Check in the description below for links to their channels and go and check them out. Both excellent channels. So let's get on to STARWARD. Now, STARWARD is one of many distilleries in Australia right now. In fact, Wikipedia tells me there's something like 120 distilleries, but a lot of them are micros, and there's quite a large amount in Tasmania. This one, STARWARD, is the first one that I've come across in the wild, let's say. That probably is because they had a major cash injection from Diageo a few years ago, so now they're going to be, to the worldwide market, although I'm not sure that they've quite made it to the US yet. But I've seen at least two of these editions in whisky shows in the UK for the last 2 years, so I'm glad that I can finally bring them to you. And I got these samples from my subscription that I pay for called the Dram Team. Again, if you're interested, I'll drop a link in the description below. The two I've got for you today is their standard New World Whisky, 43%, and the wine cask edition. Bit of a strange one because it's only 2 years old, so we can't call it a whisky in the UK, but they do call it a whisky in Australia. They've had to rebrand the bottles for us because they can't sell it as whisky, so they sell it as spirit drink in the UK. Only 2 years old, but pretty damn good. We'll get to that in a moment, but this one's 43%, this one is 41%, and they both hover around the £50 mark in the UK. I hope to God that you can get it for cheaper in Australia. We pay a little bit of a premium for stuff like this in the UK, craft distilling and things like that, but that's just the way things go. Now, these two drams have been made slightly differently. The first one is been made in ex-Apera barrels. Now, this Apera is the kind of Australian version of sherry, let's say. Obviously, sherry is a Spanish thing, so can't call it sherry per se, but they've got their own version of sherry. They age it in that. The other one, the wine cask edition, is ex-Shiraz barrels. Can't really say fairer than that. Let's crack into the first dram and see what we get. We'll kind of flip between the two, see if there's any major differences. If you're looking to buy one of these, you can choose which one you want to pick. Now, both of these are fairly young, but being in Australia, the climate there is a lot different to Scotland. I've talked about this a little bit on the channel, but just to reiterate, Scotland's climate, although throughout the year can vary from like snow, cold level temperatures to mid-20s in the summer, from day to night the difference isn't really that bad. So you might drop maybe 5 or 6 degrees. You don't really get that kind of in and out with the liquid that you get in other places. Now, Australia, the difference is quite stark. So between night and day, there's a much wider difference in temperatures. This forces the liquid into the oak in the day and withdraws it again at night. And it's the same reason why stuff like Taiwanese whiskey is able to taste so good after such a short amount of time comparatively to Scotland. That said, so the STARWARD edition I'm talking here, this is the New World Whisky, that's probably between 2, 3, 4, 5 years old. There's going to be nothing less than 3 years to be able to call whiskey in the UK, but it's not going to be very old. And on the nose, it is very sweet. It's not like super sweet. It's not like some of the ones that I've tried. Like, it's not like a Glendronach sweet, but there's definitely a high amount of sherry note to it. But it's very floral and fruity as well. It's got bags of character on the nose, very well rounded. Let's try on the palate. So much fruit, so much kind of, it's not really sugary sweetness, but it's definitely that kind of sherry sweetness that if you've tried any kind of like proper sherry bombs, it's not quite as bad as the really high level sherry bombs like we're talking Abuna and 105, but definitely you can tell that ex kind of sherry cask vibes coming from this. Let's check out the wine and see what we got. This one, I say, is only 2 years old, bless it. So not quite a whiskey in the UK, but a whiskey in Australia nonetheless. For me, this one is sweeter on the nose, but more malty. So the other one was more florally and fruity. This one has more malt character to it. So even though in the 2 years it's been aging, it's aged more than a 2 year would be in Scotland, it still retains some of that malty character for me. Let's try a little bit on the palate. This one, even though it's only slightly less ABV, for me it's much more spicy on the palate, much more tingly. It has got the sweet and the fruit of the previous dram, kind of, but for me it's more drying, especially on the finish. It's exactly what red wine does to me, to be fair, which is, you know, a little bit strange. I've never really seen how those barrels influence so young so quickly. Now, I've tried these a few times in the past, and I've always been very impressed with what they're doing. I haven't tried any other Australian whiskey, so I can't compare it with anything else from there, but I've always been impressed with these guys. 50 quid is a lot to ask for something so young, let's say, but when you consider that it's been shipped around the world to the UK, then it's not really that bad, and it's definitely within my budget. And these things taste great. They really do. It's difficult to kind of differentiate between the two. I've always said I really liked the 2 year wine cask edition the best, but now that I've tried them side by side, having not been influenced by other things at the festival, I think I might have to point myself towards the standard New World Whisky. I say standard, it's barely standard, but for me the nose is much more inviting. And although they're both sweet, this one's slightly less sweet, so it's not drawing me in as much for the sweetness, but that's okay, I don't mind that. I think it's it's slightly more well-rounded than the wine cask edition. They're both excellent though. If you get the opportunity to try them, I wholeheartedly recommend it. 50 quid is a lot of money, as I said, but if you were interested and you've been holding back because you've been waiting for a review like this, I would say pull the trigger on it, get either one. For me, the New World Whisky wins out by a hair, but I think you'd be happy with both of them, brutally honest.